Woohoo! Hi, Islanders. Am I doing it right? I'm such a dork. Hope everybody's doing well. It's Ivy again, obviously. And I am, again, in my house, and I am coming to you with some information from the second half of Chapter 6 in our nonverbal textbook. And Chapter 6 is on kinesics, which we defined as body motion or body positioning. So we talked about posture, we talked about stance, we talked about synchrony with people, mimicry, bunch of that stuff. So we stopped at walk. I think I did go over that a little bit, or just mention that we were headed there, and for you to take a look at your walk and how your walk is affected by how you feel. You have a unique walk as part of your body motion, your kinesics, but it is greatly affected by how you feel physically. It's affected by certain physical characteristics, how long your legs are, how easily you put your legs in motion. Some people with arthritis, their hips don't work all that well, and so they may walk differently. Your walk may change as you age because your physical characteristics change, your physical health changes. So there's a lot of things that affect that. I want to pick it up on page 196 with the section on be seated. This is how you sit. And I talk in here about Young Life, and I want to mention Young Life to you. Some of you have never heard of Young Life, but some of you have, and you know what Young Life is. I have a very rich history with Young Life. Young Life is a Christian ministry primarily in the high schools. There's some, it's probably expanded beyond that. I know it's expanded to college level. We have Young Life people who can conduct ministry, Christian ministry events and things on different campuses. In fact, one of our recent communication grads just got a full-time Young Life staff position to work at UT Austin. So cool. Okay, so I have a bunch of Young Life leaders in my classes because they're good communication majors. They're drawn to communication as a major. But what I wanted to tell you is that when I used to be in high school and I would go to Young Life meetings, you would watch and the girls would all, and most of the time they're on the floor. You don't sit all in seats, because it feels a little too much like church, and Young Life is not like church, but usually you're on the floor, right? And there's no chairs and everybody kind of spreads out. Well, the girls are usually really tight. They're usually sitting like cross-legged, like Indian style, or they're sitting kind of dainty. And the guys are just spread out everywhere. I mean, legs and arms, limbs just thrown out there. They might be stretched out completely, on their elbow like this. It is the funniest thing to watch how much room men in American culture tend to take up compared to women. We talked about that in Chapter 4 on proxemics, that men are afforded bigger spaces and they also take up more space. They spread themselves out and either require or just are more comfortable in bigger spaces than women. Women's space is more readily invaded compared to men. But you still do have this happen, so watch for that. Sometimes it's interesting. There's also, now we have mansplaining, right? Mansplaining, you all know what mansplaining is? This is when typically a man over-explains something to a woman like she doesn't have a brain in her head. And he's just enjoying this windy explanation. Yeah, mansplaining. Well, we also have manspreading and mansitting. And we talk about that on page 196 a little bit. There's a drawing right there on 196 of this circle with the man and his legs are real wide out and the woman's standing there like this. And it's got the red slash across the middle, like when you get on the subway, don't manspread. Well, there is a physiological reason sometimes why it is more comfortable for men to sit and their legs are apart. Okay? If you watch a man and a woman sit, I don't mean to be crude, but a lot of us as girls, our mothers taught us to keep our legs together. That was ladylike, was to have your legs together, that you didn't sit like this, or you didn't cross one leg at a right angle like a lot of men do. And so we sometimes pretzel ourselves, which isn't really good for our veins and our legs, truth be told, but we do that. And so this manspreading thing is sometimes it's related to the pelvis. It's related to the lower back. And men and women physiologically are different in the pelvis area. Obviously, women are baby birthers. Our pelvises are different. This is how they can tell if a set of bones, if a skeleton is dug up or found somewhere, how they can tell if it's male or female. It's typically the shape of the pelvis. But look at that with the whole man spreading thing, because it's been quite a thing of men just taking up so much more space and spreading their legs apart. And of course the men in the subway are like, well, you women have all your packages and your purses and your bags, and y'all been taking up extra seats on the subway for forever, so get off my back. Anyway, it's just a little funny thing we threw into the book this time. Okay, starting on page 197 is some information about gestures. Yeah, I use my hands a lot. So, it's not particularly feminine. That's a stereotype that says women can't talk if their hands are tied down. I have found, as a public speaker, as a college professor for almost 40 years, wow, I do use my hands a lot. I try not to use a lot of repetitive gestures that don't add anything to what you're saying, because it's just the same over and over again. So, and these YouTube videos are hilarious because they'll freeze me in some weird position. Like I just saw one of them and I'm up like this. They're making a face. And I'm like, well, I didn't start my video that way. I didn't end my video that way, but that's what shows up on YouTube. It makes me look like a loon. Anyway, I digress. One of the most important sets, remember a lot of lists in nonverbal, a lot of categories. One of the most important sets of things starts right there on 197, and it's good old Ekman and Friesen, Paul Ekman, Wallace Friesen, incredible researchers for decades, have given us a lot of the foundations, the fundamentals of nonverbal communication. And so Ekman's and Friesen's categories are real important. First one is emblems. You'll see this kind of hippie-looking guy on page 197, and he's going like this. He's doing the peace sign. Now, an emblem is a gesture that across most cultures, not all, but across most cultures and across time, it tends to have a universal interpretation. This one is not really universal. It can mean peace, like it does here in the United States. This is so weird when you do one of these too, because you can't turn your hands the right way because you're in a mirror image. Anyway, it could mean, I would like 2 beers, please. Or it could mean V for victory. Nixon, I am not a crook. Let me get this about there. I am not a crook. Okay, V for victory, right? So it has multiple interpretations. There are 2 gestures pretty well determined by research to be universal across cultures. One of them is the pointing gesture. Draws the eye to something you want someone to look at. So pointing seems to be fairly universal. The other one is this, hands up. This one, fairly universal in the world, okay? This has a stop, back up, move away, also kind of an I surrender thing. But when we turn the palms out to other people, there's a pretty direct interpretation of that. Now, it's different if it's like this or if it's like this, right? That would change it. But this one and the pointing gesture tend to be the only 2 gestures that aren't connected to a specific culture. They're pretty well universal, which is kind of cool. Illustrators are the things we use the most. I'm using a ton of illustrators. That's just any kind of gesture that accompanies speech. It's not necessarily like, like our shakas, our islander thing. That's an emblem to us and to surfers. I think if you do it like this, it means I love you in sign language, correct? If you do this, I never do this because I'm a boomer sooner. I do this on occasion. Sorry, some of y'all are Longhorn fans. So, illustrators. Next one are affect displays. Affect here is a word for emotion or attitude, and it's affect, not to affect somebody, which is the verb form. This is a noun. Affect, emotion, attitude. Affect displays are on the face, primarily on the face, and they are those things that reveal what we are feeling or our attitudes about something. Regulators is kind of a subset of all of these things. Regulators are those nonverbal gestures and facial expressions, and also some tone of voice, that we use in conversation to get it started, to keep it going, and to stop it. So regulators are gestures and facial expressions that are connected to conversation with other people, okay? And the last one is adapters. Adapters are big, dramatic. I'm going to tell you something here. I'm going to pound the podium. I'm sorry, adapters are, you know what? I just realized I got that totally wrong. I got that totally wrong. I'm not going to stop the video and do it all over again because it's already read a long time. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the accenting function of a gesture. Oops. Okay. What I mean by adapters is adapters are those behaviors that we do to help us adjust to our environment or adjust to a situation. So when y'all take tests, when y'all take quizzes and things like inside the classroom, and I'm standing up there and I'm kind of watching what's going on, oh my gosh, the adapters are flying. Adapters are those behaviors, a lot of times you don't even know you're doing them, but they are to try to either calm you down or adjust you to an environment. That's adapters. Okay, so adapters are, maybe some of y'all chew your pencil, some of you twirl. I had a student who could twirl a pencil on the top palm of his hand, and I watched him the whole time. I was like, that's incredible. How does he do that? Thigh shaker. Some classrooms I can see under the tables, and I can see that your thighs are going, or your foot is tapping a whole bunch. Sometimes you make noise, and you don't realize you're making noise. You're just using one of your adapters. Maybe you're chewing your fingernails, okay? Twisting the hair twisting, known as the self-perm. Okay. Back to that whole list, right? Gestures are very affected by culture. We find that out on page 201 and 202, but you knew that. Toward the back end of this chapter, as I'm closing up here, there are some applications of kinesics research. Kinesics research is being done everywhere. Okay, what do leaders do with gestures and kinesics? And walk and stance and all of that. What do subordinates do? There's a ton of this research being done. One of the ones we talk about is flirting, because flirting has a whole lot of kinesics attached to it. Even in online flirtation, there are kinesics, body positioning, okay? Then we look at kids and kinesics, like how kids learn to gesture. And they learn that primarily from their parents of origin, particularly their moms and dads, and they pick that up. And then they also learn it from any siblings or any extended family members. But it's interesting to see how kids figure out how to move and how to walk and how to stand and how to gesture. It's really cute. So I will close there, my dear, precious, wonderful nonverbal communication students. Next time, I don't know where I will be recording these. It won't be the bathroom. Good to know. That's helpful. I'll just move around my house. All right, y'all. Take care. We are moving on into Chapter 7. See you soon, and stay safe, Islanders.